The price of Bitcoin is getting a major leg to the downside in the last 24 hours. Over $4,000 of a drop here, testing the lows of the range. It's not looking too great. Apparently, the video update that I provided yesterday did not age well. And let me tell you one thing, this hasn't even aged yet. This was one scenario that could happen that has been mentioned throughout the last few days. Getting the rejection at 120K, and there is the possibility of coming down to retest the $115,000 range, okay? Matter of fact, this was a trading setup that was mentioned in the signals channel in the Telegram, okay? We did talk about the rejection just a few days ago at 120K to actually come down and test the lows of the range below $116,000. Now, if you're more interested in day trading scenarios with the rest of the analysts providing also information analysis and setups, make sure to join the Telegram channel because we are looking for intraday setups, as you can see as well. And on YouTube, we generally talk about the higher probability scenarios on the higher time frame. You got the Telegram link down below in the description. It is the first link down below, guys. And on YouTube, well, we talked about this being a possibility. Now, the moment that this will age badly is when we break down successfully from this zone right over here. The moment that this does manage to break down successfully, which I think has extremely low probability, is the moment that these videos, I mean, this was talking about this scenario also yesterday, that is the moment that this will not age well, okay? So let's go right away through the different scenarios and break down here the different possibilities for the price of Bitcoin. And let's start off with the lowest probability scenario, which is on the higher time frame, getting that successful breakdown here below 116, 115K. That does not mean that we cannot revisit 114 and even 113K, but I would say that that is the limit zone before the price gets a bounce on the higher time frame. Now, the most bearish case scenario that is looking at a massive impulsive move to the downside that is getting developed, and we are currently in the development of a wave 3 that could go to extreme low levels, 110K, 108K, right? Low probability. I don't see this happening, guys, unless the price really starts pushing down with an insane amount of volume. Now, the main reason why this has low probability is because this wave 2 right over here is 5 times longer than your wave 1, and this looks extremely corrective, okay, when we take a look at the other different scenarios. Now, this would be the most bearish case. You formed here a 1, 2, and potentially right now you're in your 3, 4, and 5. We are getting resistance at the value area low of this entire trading zone. Okay, there is that resistance here. However, you know, we could be forming a double 1, 2. 1, 2 right over here. You get a bounce and, you know, you get bearish CVD divergence, and then you get that breakdown in your wave 3, 4, and 5. Okay, to complete that third wave on the higher time frame, right? Then 4 and 5, you just really start moving down very impulsively. Low probability, purely based on this. You got your leg down and then a massive long correction in your wave 2, which is very low probability. You don't usually see this happening on the charts, okay? If you ask me about, you know, over 100 times that your wave 2 is 5, 6 times longer than your wave 1, you know, I would say it might happen 3 times or 4 times out of 100, right? So if you are trading probabilities and you're looking at the odds, well, it's unlikely that this is a wave 2, right? We're bringing up here the other scenarios, right? Usually B waves or X waves are longer, okay? So that means that, yeah, higher probability. For this scenario as well, this was a scenario that was mentioned yesterday. This one, or, you know, there's several options, okay? This was a scenario mentioned yesterday as well, okay? Out of a few of the bearish ones, okay, because there is that WXY, which is also, you know, could be the scenario in play at the moment, right, where you form that ABC flat. I will cover it right away in the next coming minutes. But what was mentioned also throughout the last few days is that high volume candle. Remember, the higher low, okay, of the highest volume candle right over here most of the times does provide significant support. And that is exactly what has happened throughout the last few hours. I mean, yeah, this is a bounce of $1,000. it's good for a scalp. For the moment, I do see this area not breaking down successfully, okay? So overall, this is another scenario that is possible, right? You got your A wave, you got your running flat in your B wave, and now you are basically forming that 5-wave structure inside of your C wave, right? Which is looking relatively interesting. Yeah, you can dip down below 115K, maybe hit 114K zone, but I really do think that if we do revisit the local lows, that we could be seeing that reaction, right? A little bit of a, choppy descending channel to create that 4th wave, 5th wave, right to the downside and ultimately get that bounce. Could the low be in here? Absolutely, that is also a possibility. So looking more for a corrective structure, regardless if it's this ABC scenario or we have the other scenarios as well. Now, the triangle was also an option mentioned on yesterday's video update, where we have the A wave, then you have an A, B, C, D, E, and then you get this breakdown, right, where you're probably going to get a little bit of choppiness here below 114K. I don't see much downside. I don't like this scenario too much because we would have to be dropping down very aggressively. You got only your first leg down, right? And then you form your next leg to the downside here. Low probability for this, guys, okay? When we do zoom out on the higher time frame, we are still very much in bullish market structure. This is what we're looking at, right? Where we do have that finished move to the upside and we're just correcting right now, okay? When we do see this scenario, right? We're still leaning on this scenario right over here where you finished your 3-wave corrective structure. You start your impulsive moves to the upside, and here you have your potential 3rd wave and your 4th wave, which is usually the most complex and the longest wave, okay, out of the corrective waves, the wave 2s and 4s. 4th waves are usually very long and complex. They have a lot of choppiness, a lot of overlap. People go relatively crazy when we have this formation. Hey, for the simple viewers out there, we're probably just forming a descending wedge structure and we're going to get that breakout in the next coming days, right? Why complicate yourself so much? Well, this only gives you really good entries and, seeing the highest probability. But for the average Joe out there, you got to pump and you're forming a descending wedge. We might break out, right, to the upside at it as it is a descending wedge. It does look very, very corrective indeed. So let's just go through the different other scenarios right over here, which, basically is the WXY as explained a few days ago, right? A few days ago, we were pointing out on that rejection here, forming that flat. So if we do have the X wave here, where we do have a zigzag up, another zigzag to the downside, and what we're looking at here is that flat structure to form your Y wave. Well, this is literally what we're looking at, right? Where we have the possible flat formation from X wave, okay? So you got your zigzag up, zigzag down, and move to the upside. Sorry, the zigzag is down here, and you form a flat in your X wave, okay? All of this is your complex corrective move. Remember, we want to see 3 waves, right? There's 3 waves down here, 3 waves here in your X wave. And right now, what we could be looking at, as mentioned just a few days ago, is that flat structure where from X wave you got the leg down, you sweep up the start of your A wave, right? And now you're looking for that 5-wave move to the downside. Could we be forming here the 4th wave? We get one more leg down. Now this is a great option for a swing failure pattern unless you're in some long positions. I'm currently still in several long positions compounding as we get this really good entry zone, right? I want to add to the position once we hit support. We see proof of support, right? Mainly in long positions throughout most of the exchanges. Guys, remember, if you are interested in trading, we've got this incredible bonuses throughout multiple exchanges, right? They're all really good, the ones that I'm using. Bluffing, you got 20% cashback. You got weeks as well as an alternative, 20% rewards, okay, on your deposit. Up to $30,000 in deposit bonuses. The more you trade, the more airdrops you're going to get. And you also have 25% fee reduction using that link down below. For weeks, it's the 4th link, guys, to get all of these perks. And for bluffing, you have the 2nd link as well, okay? Take advantage using those links down below. You only need an email and a password, no personal information needed for those exchanges. This scenario right over here, as mentioned, this is where it can get a little bit tricky, right? Where you do have the 1st wave to the downside, the corrective wave, which is forming that flat. We talked about this flat yesterday. you always have the option, guys, to trade based on the analysis, right? There is that potential of forming a flat, take out the local highs, and then move down to below 116K. You know, we did get that leg up. We struggled to break the highs, and we moved down. It is a scenario, right, that was definitely possible. You trade as you wish based on the analysis. So now we're coming down here. You know, what are the most, you know, risky scenarios, right? As mentioned, the bearish case, which is forming, you know, that multiple 1-2. We're in the third wave, right? Multiple 1-2, we break down. Eventually, you know, as mentioned, your wave 2 is extremely long, you know, giving it the lowest probability scenario. So what could happen, right? If we are looking for that WXY, if we are looking for this, you know, to basically look for a 5-wave structure, okay, or, you know, inside of the flat, the question is the low in here? Well, as we do look at the price action from this possible ABC flat, or regardless if the high is here and we are starting, you know, that leading move down, 1, 2, 3, you're in your third wave, or in your first 1 and 2 of your third wave, you really, you know, want to be a little bit cautious at this moment, right? You are hitting that resistance. You know, we are getting that bounce eventually of that higher low. You know, this bounces 90% of the times, guys. We mentioned this a lot. When you have a high volume candle and a higher low, it's just a perfect swing failure pattern. Question is right now, is the low in, or will we revisit the lows? I do see the potential of revisiting the lows, and that has to do with this movement to the downside. You got 1, 2. If this is your third wave, you do not want to overlap, okay, the lows that we formed on Thursday, okay? These lows right over here, preferably they're not overlapped, okay? If they are going to be overlapped, which is around about $117,500, $400, give or take, that is the moment that we're not looking at this as a third wave, okay? And this is the fourth wave, because in an impulse, you cannot overlap with your fourth wave, your first wave, right? So if we are going to start getting into this territory, which we've been only about, you know, $1,000 away since we created that bounce just in the last 30 minutes, that is going to be looking very interesting. That's also when we will be starting to reclaim, okay, the value area low of this entire range, okay? So that's going to be looking quite interesting, in my opinion, where the value area low can be reclaimed. That is the moment that I will be quite bullish, if I'm honest with you. I will be looking to compound into my long positions. There is the risk of a 1-2, 1-2, okay? But the risk is low, like I mentioned, right? And then you 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, you start breaking down in an impulse, right, in the next coming days. I do see low probability on this scenario. Of course, maintain risk, guys. I'm just a crazy guy on YouTube, right? And I will be happy to say my videos from the last few days did not age well, guys. You know, we broke down in the end. You know, I hope you managed risk. You know, I will be talking about this personally on the video updates. You know, I'm very much vocal about when I'm very wrong on a situation and looking at the different probabilities. So, you know, this hasn't aged well, okay? This hasn't aged yet, right? From someone that was commenting, you know, just on yesterday's video. This was a scenario. We're looking at the range. You know, the moment that this doesn't age well is when we break down successfully. And when we talk about a successful breakdown, it's like breaking down $5,000. Yeah, we can revisit 114K, 113K. It can get choppy and noisy here, all right, which is very common. Something interesting to point out here is the delta. When we do take a look here at the order flow, right, looking at the footprint, you know, there's lots of shorts entering throughout Binance here, almost $1 billion in negative delta here, you know, literally at 116K zone. So there's kind of lots of shorts piling up here. We do have bullish CVD divergence throughout multiple exchanges. The shorts continue to pile, and we still form higher lows, you know, not from only this one. We did form higher lows from this area, but then this is looking at the 15-minute time frame. You know, you are forming lower lows on the CVD from the pivots that we formed, right, the second week of July, which is, you know, hey, you know, there's a lot of selling pressure, lots of lower lows building up here throughout multiple exchanges. So look at this. I mean, you know, just grinding down here, getting beneath the lows that we formed 2 weeks ago, right, at 108K. So, you know, there's just, it's really looking quite good. And it's interesting to see the amount of shorts entering here on Binance, on Bybit, with the negative delta at the 116K level. And that means that we could be seeing those trap shorts and finally get that leg to the upside. We are building liquidity to the upside, which is good, right? This is a good thing to get that bounce. So if we would have had long liquidations and no shorts entering the market with the liquidity in the zone, I would be very skeptical. I'll be like, guys, you know, there's not even people shorting the market. You know, everybody's long. It's time to get liquidated, right? So that gives a little bit of confidence with the analysis as well, looking at, you know, basically Elliott wave theory. What would I want to see for confirmation? Confirmation, without a doubt, is literally hitting 119.5, which is the lower high from yesterday. You know, the moment that you reclaim the valley area low of this entire trading zone of the last 2 weeks, it's already going to be looking pretty damn bullish, okay? But the moment you get above this level, which is literally breaking that trend line, that's when it's like risk on, right? All of the longs that have been taken from lower should be compounded, right? And I'm in very significant heavy longs, okay, throughout multiple exchanges. And that's the moment that I would be confident. If we break down, you know, then it's getting stopped out. It doesn't matter, right? It's just part of the game. Another scenario here to be confident that we are going to, you know, break out and hit all-time high. You know, if you want extra confirmation, you know, in a nutshell, is the moment that we create a 5-wave move to the upside, especially getting close to this lower high. You know, that's the moment that the correction is going to be looking very interesting, right? If we do get some kind of a corrective move after getting back inside of the range, that is like ultimate confirmation, right? You know, we're looking for all-time high regardless, and it's time to get really, really swing long on the situation. Not much has to be said, guys. You know, for me, a confirmation would be hitting 119.5K. That's when I will be extremely bullish. And if you want, you know, to get into a trading position, if you want more confirmation and you're not confident here that the price is going to get a bounce, you want to see a kind of an impulsive move, right? And then eventually the correction down to the 50%, 7/8 Fibonacci, if you do get that pullback, is going to be your zone where you're like, this is it, right? This is literally going to be it, okay? Because without a doubt, this will no longer, this new move to the downside, if this is going to be the new move to the downside, this has to push down in the next coming days very aggressively if this has to be an impulse, okay? 1, 2, this has to start pushing down between today and tomorrow. The moment we start dancing around here, revisit the lows, we get a nice bounce, and we just don't break down, that's going to even confirm more that at some point, you know, we're going to get that blast off, okay, to the upside, potentially in the next coming days. So the overall triangle did not play out, right? This was one scenario, okay? We had the A, B, C, D, E possibility. You know, we got the breakdown to test the lows, which was, you know, without a doubt, one of the local scenarios that could happen. When we do take a look at the news, it's looking very interesting. Apparently, this feared drop is being created because Galaxy Digital, you know, has already dumped over 10,000 Bitcoin and has been continuing throughout the previous hours. Deposited another 2,850 BTC to exchanges, right? And just dumping thousands of Bitcoin. On the other side, you know, this has probably created that drop to come to this massive level of support. On the other side, we do have, okay, a strategy, okay, which is, you know, upsized STRC IPO 400% and raised $2.5 billion to buy more Bitcoin, which is around about 21,000 BTC at current price levels, right? Pretty aggressive. This is likely going to be happening right throughout the next coming weeks and days, guys, where we're just going to, you know, expected Bitcoin buys in the next few weeks. MicroStrategy, Mara, SEP, you know, 20,000, 7,000 Bitcoin, 6,500. You know, there's still a lot of buying pressure despite Galaxy Digital, right, in the last 24 hours selling, you know, over 10,000 Bitcoin. So overall, you know, buying spots, you know, it does look very bullish throughout the rest of, you know, different institutions, as we can see here. Legends, not much more has to be said on this video update. Make sure to maintain risk, okay? The overall chart looks good. We are getting that first initial bounce from, a major level that we like to take a look on the channel. Maintain risk. It can get choppy. We can revisit the lows. Not looking for a successful breakdown from this low, as mentioned throughout the entire last 2 weeks, guys. Breaking down successfully here, which can create a bit of noise, don't get me wrong. Okay, still unlikely in my personal opinion. Trade safe, guys. It's just an opinion. It's just my analysis. Thank you very much for joining, and I will see you in the next one.